Hey, this is Elliot, back with another Truth Teller story. But first, before we get into the main story, a short synopsis. Dr. Jenny Mitchell, an environmental scientist at Meridian Waste Solutions, discovers toxic contamination during routine soil sampling that should contain only safe construction debris. Her investigation reveals illegal disposal of hazardous waste threatening the drinking water of 40,000 people downstream. When Jenny reports her findings, she faces escalating corporate intimidation from Sterling Environmental Group, Meridian's parent company led by ruthless CEO Victoria Sterling. Investigative journalist Rachel Torres joins Jenny's fight, uncovering Sterling's multi-state criminal enterprise worth hundreds of millions of dollars in avoided disposal costs. Discover why Victoria Sterling is arrested while attempting to flee the country with $2 million cash. Let's dive into part 1 of 5.
The alarm buzzed at 5:30, just like every weekday morning for the past 3 years. Dr. Jenny Mitchell rolled over and silenced it with practiced precision, her hand finding the button without opening her eyes. Beside her bed, Copper, her golden retriever rescue, lifted his head and yawned. "Come on, boy," Jenny whispered, her voice still rough with sleep. "Another day at the salt mines." The irony wasn't lost on her. Meridian Waste Solutions didn't mine salt. They buried things, dangerous things. Things that needed to stay buried for thousands of years. Jenny's morning routine was methodical, bordering on obsessive. Coffee first, dark roast, no sugar, splash of milk. While it brewed, she checked the weather forecast, not for small talk, but because wind patterns and precipitation affected soil sampling. Shower. Business casual attire. Nothing that couldn't handle mud or chemical splashes. A quick breakfast of Greek yogurt and granola while scanning overnight emails from the lab. By 6:45, she was backing her Honda Civic out of the driveway of her modest rental house. The divorce settlement had been fair, but starting over at 34 meant modest choices. She'd kept Copper and her integrity. David had kept the house and his pharmaceutical sales career. Sometimes she wondered who got the better deal. The drive to Meridian's Riverside facility took 22 minutes in light traffic. Jenny used the time to mentally review her schedule. Tuesday meant soil sampling at the eastern perimeter, data analysis from Monday's groundwater tests, and the weekly safety meeting at 2 o'clock. Predictable. Safe. At least, that's what she thought. The Meridian Waste Solutions facility sprawled across 200 acres of former farmland, 30 miles east of the city. To the untrained eye, it looked almost pastoral, rolling hills, carefully maintained grass, a few scattered buildings that could have housed any light industrial operation. Only the fencing gave it away. 12 feet high, topped with razor wire, with security checkpoints that rivaled military installations. Jenny badged in at the main gate, exchanging morning pleasantries with Tommy, the security guard who'd been there since the facility opened. "Morning, Doc. How's Copper doing?" "Growing fat and lazy," Jenny replied, forcing a smile, "just like his owner." Tommy laughed. "You work harder than anybody here. Don't let the suits tell you different." The comment stuck with her as she drove to the equipment shed. Tommy was right. She did work hard. Maybe too hard, according to David. According to the marriage counselor. According to everyone except the groundwater aquifer that supplied drinking water to 40,000 people downstream. Jenny loaded her field kit into the back of the company pickup. Soil auger, sample containers, pH meter, conductivity probe, GPS unit, and her weathered field notebook. The notebook was analog insurance in a digital world. Companies could delete files, crash servers, lose data to mysterious technical failures. But handwritten notes in waterproof ink? Those lasted. The eastern perimeter was her favorite sampling location. Away from the main facility, it felt less like a toxic waste site, and more like the farm it used to be. She could see corn growing in the distance, green stalks swaying in the morning breeze. It was easy to forget that beneath her feet lay 30 years of buried industrial waste. Easy, but not accurate. Jenny set up her equipment at sampling point EP7, a location she'd tested monthly for 2 years. The routine was mechanical. Auger down 18 inches. Collect soil in sterile containers. Label everything in triplicate. Record GPS coordinates. Note weather conditions. She'd done this hundreds of times. But this time something was different. The soil came up darker than usual. Wet. It should have been dry this deep. They hadn't had significant rainfall in 2 weeks. Ginny held a clump up to her nose and inhaled carefully. A faint chemical smell, sharp and metallic, not typical for this location. She checked her notes from the previous month. Normal soil conditions, slightly alkaline pH, no unusual odors or discoloration. Jenny frowned and moved to the next sampling point, 50 meters north. Same dark wet soil, same chemical smell. By the time she'd completed the full perimeter survey, Jenny had documented the same anomaly at 6 of 8 sampling locations. Her field notebook filled with increasingly concerned observations. Unusual moisture content, strong petroleum odor, visible staining on soil particles. Back at the lab, Jenny ran preliminary tests while the samples were still fresh. pH levels were through the roof, so basic they barely registered on her equipment. Conductivity readings suggested high levels of dissolved salts or metals. When she ran the samples through the organic compounds detector, the machine practically lit up like a Christmas tree. Something was very wrong at Meridian Waste Solutions. Jenny pulled up the disposal manifests on her computer, cross-referencing dates and locations. According to the official records, nothing hazardous had been buried near the eastern perimeter in over 5 years. The area was classified as low-risk storage for construction debris and non-hazardous industrial waste. But the soil told a different story. The weekly safety meeting was held in Conference Room B, a windowless box with fluorescent lighting and motivational posters that had seen better decades. Ginny arrived early, her laptop bag heavy with printouts of the morning's test results. She'd spent her lunch hour running additional analyses, each one confirming her initial findings. The eastern perimeter was contaminated, badly contaminated. Her supervisor, Mike Peterson, was already there, scrolling through emails on his phone. Mike was a good guy, if a bit overwhelmed by the administrative side of environmental management. He'd started at Meridian as a field technician 20 years ago and worked his way up through competence rather than ambition. "Hey, Jenny, how'd the perimeter sampling go this morning?" Jenny opened her laptop. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I'm seeing some unusual readings from the eastern boundary." Other team members filtered in: Dave from air quality monitoring, Lisa from groundwater analysis, and Rob from waste transportation. The usual crowd. People who took their job seriously even when management didn't always appreciate the complexity of what they did. When Mike called the meeting to order, Jenny raised her hand immediately. "I'd like to discuss some anomalous soil conditions I discovered this morning." Mike nodded. "Sure, go ahead." Jenny pulled up her data on the projector. "I collected samples from 8 locations along the eastern perimeter. 6 of them show signs of significant chemical contamination. pH levels above 11, conductivity readings suggesting heavy metal presence, and visible hydrocarbon staining." The room got quiet. Dave leaned forward. "That's the construction debris area, right?" "Nothing hazardous should be there." "That's correct," Jenny said. "According to our disposal manifests, the last hazardous waste buried in that sector was in 2019, but these readings suggest recent contamination." Lisa frowned. Could it be migration from the main storage areas? Ginny had considered that. Possible, but unlikely. The geology doesn't support lateral movement at that scale, and we haven't had the kind of precipitation that would drive surface contamination. Mike looked uncomfortable. "What are you thinking, Ginny?" Ginny took a deep breath. This was the moment where she could back down, suggest more testing, buy herself time to figure out what was really happening. Or she could say what the evidence was telling her. "I think we have undocumented disposal in that sector, recent disposal of materials that don't match our manifests." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Rob spoke up. "That would be a pretty serious violation. Are you sure about these readings?" Ginny nodded. "I ran the test 3 times. I'm confident in the data." Mike cleared his throat. "Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Ginny, I want you to expand your sampling grid. Get more data points. Maybe run some historical comparisons. We don't want to raise any flags without being absolutely certain." "What about reporting requirements?" Jenny asked. "If there's contamination above threshold levels, we need to notify the EPA within 48 hours. Mike's expression tightened. "Let's get more data first." False alarms don't help anybody. The meeting moved on to other topics: air quality readings, truck maintenance schedules, new safety protocols. But Jenny barely heard any of it. Her mind was racing through the implications of what she'd discovered. Someone at Meridian had buried hazardous waste in an unauthorized location. Someone had falsified disposal manifests. Someone was breaking federal environmental law. The question was, who knew about it? After the meeting, Jenny returned to the lab to begin processing her soil samples for comprehensive analysis. The preliminary tests had been alarming enough, but she needed hard data, specific compounds, concentration levels, chemical signatures that could identify the source of contamination. She was calibrating the gas chromatograph when someone knocked on the lab door. Jenny looked up to see Josh Webb standing in the hallway, still wearing his plant supervisor coveralls. Josh was something of a legend at Meridian. He'd been there since the facility opened, had worked every job from truck driver to waste handler to his current position overseeing daily operations. He was quiet, competent, and had the kind of institutional memory that made him invaluable to management and slightly dangerous to anyone trying to cut corners. "Dr. Mitchell, you got a minute?" Jenny glanced around the empty lab. "Sure, come on in." Josh stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He was a big man, probably 60 years old, with calloused hands and the kind of tan that came from decades of outdoor work. His expression was serious. "I heard about your findings this morning, the eastern perimeter." Word traveled fast in a facility this size. Jenny wasn't surprised that news of her discovery had already made the rounds. "I'm still analyzing the samples," she said carefully. Josh nodded and was quiet for a moment, seeming to wrestle with something. Finally, he spoke. 28 years I've been here. 28 years of watching trucks come and go, manifests getting filed, waste getting buried according to regulations." He paused. "Most of the time." Jenny felt her pulse quicken. "Most of the time?" Josh looked toward the lab door, as if checking for eavesdroppers. "There are things that happen here, Dr. Mitchell. Things that don't make it into official reports. Things that maybe you don't want to know about. Josh, if you know something about improper disposal..." He held up a hand. "I'm not saying I know anything specific. I'm just saying that a person who's been around as long as I have, they notice patterns. Trucks that come in after hours, manifests that get filed retroactively, burial locations that don't match the paperwork." Jenny stared at him. "Are you telling me there's systematic falsification of disposal records?" Josh was quiet for a long moment. "I'm telling you to be careful, Dr. Mitchell. You're a good scientist. You ask the right questions." "But sometimes the right questions make people nervous." "What people?" "People who make more money than you and me. People who have more to lose if certain questions get answered." Jenny felt a chill that had nothing to do with the lab's air conditioning. "Josh, if you know about environmental violations, you have an obligation to report them. We both do." Josh's expression was sad. "Dr. Mitchell, I've got 2 years until retirement. My wife has cancer, and the insurance through this job is keeping her alive. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying I'm proud of it. I'm just saying that's reality." He moved toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "But if someone else were to stumble across information that needed to see daylight, well, that would be a different situation entirely. Especially if that someone had the scientific credentials to make their findings stick." Josh left, closing the door quietly behind him. Jenny stared after him, her mind reeling. Josh Webb knew something. Maybe not everything, but something. And he just told her, in the most careful way possible, that she was walking into dangerous territory. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Mike Peterson. Per upper management request, please schedule a meeting to discuss expanded perimeter testing protocol. We need a comprehensive plan before proceeding." Upper management. That meant people above Mike's pay grade had already heard about her findings. People who, as Josh had put it, had more to lose if certain questions got answered. Jenny looked at her soil samples, still waiting for analysis. Whatever was buried out there, someone wanted it to stay buried. But Jenny had spent her career digging up the truth about environmental contamination. She wasn't about to stop now, even if it was dangerous. Jenny stayed late that evening, long after most of the staff had gone home. The lab was quiet, except for the hum of equipment and the occasional settling sounds of the building. She'd sent her preliminary soil analysis to an off-site laboratory for independent confirmation, but she wanted to run her own comprehensive tests first. The gas chromatograph results were worse than she'd expected. The soil contained benzene, toluene, xylene, and a cocktail of other organic compounds that had no business being in a, quote, construction debris burial site. Heavy metals were present in concentrations that exceeded federal guidelines by orders of magnitude. Mercury, lead, chromium, arsenic. A toxic soup that would render groundwater undrinkable for generations. Jenny printed the results and locked them in her desk drawer. Then she pulled up the facility's disposal manifest database and began cross-referencing dates, locations, and waste classifications. What she found made her stomach turn. For the past 18 months, the database showed regular disposal of non-hazardous construction materials in the eastern perimeter. But the chemical signatures in her soil samples told a different story. Someone was burying Class A hazardous waste, the most dangerous category, and falsifying the documentation. Her desk phone rang, startling her in the quiet lab. The caller ID showed an internal extension. Environmental Lab, this is Jenny. Dr. Mitchell, this is building security. I show your badge is still active in the facility. Everything okay? Jenny glanced at the clock. 9:15 p.m. Fine, just finishing up some analysis. I should be out of here within the hour. Copy that. Have a good evening. Jenny hung up, feeling suddenly exposed. Security was tracking her movements. Of course they were. It was a hazardous waste facility. But the call felt different somehow. Less routine, more pointed. She copied her test results onto a flash drive and slipped it into her purse. Then she began shutting down equipment and securing her work area. Whatever was happening at Meridian Waste Solutions, she needed to be smart about how she handled it. As she gathered her things, Jenny heard the distant sound of heavy machinery, unusual for this time of evening. She moved to the lab's single window and peered out into the darkness. In the distance, near the eastern perimeter, she could see lights moving, big lights, like the kind mounted on excavation equipment. Jenny checked her watch. 9:30 p.m. Why would anyone be operating heavy machinery at the eastern perimeter at this hour? She grabbed her field notebook and car keys. Whatever was happening out there, she needed to see it. The drive from the main building to the eastern perimeter took 5 minutes on the facility's internal roads. Jenny killed her headlights as she approached and parked behind a maintenance shed about 200 meters from the activity. Through her binoculars, she could see an excavator and 2 dump trucks working in the area where she'd collected her morning samples. Men in coveralls were directing the operation, their voices carried on the night wind but too distant to make out words. They were digging in the exact location where her soil samples had shown the highest contamination levels. Jenny watched for 20 minutes, documenting everything in her notebook. Equipment types, personnel count, apparent scope of excavation. It looked like a cleanup operation. But why at night? Why with no environmental oversight? Why with no documentation in the official work orders? Unless it wasn't an official operation. One of the workers separated from the group and began walking in her direction. Jenny's heart hammered as she realized she'd been spotted. She started her car and drove away as casually as possible, but in her rear-view mirror she could see the figure standing in the road, watching her taillights disappear. Back home, Jenny sat in her kitchen with copper at her feet and tried to make sense of what she'd witnessed. Someone was conducting unauthorized excavation at the site of documented contamination. The timing wasn't coincidental. They were cleaning up evidence. But evidence of what, exactly, and who was behind it? Jenny's laptop chimed with an email. The message was from an address she didn't recognize. J. Mitchell at Meridian.com. That was her company email, but the message wasn't coming from Meridian's servers. The subject line read, "Some things are better left buried." The message body contained a single line of text. Curiosity killed the cat, Dr. Mitchell. But satisfaction brought it back. The question is, how badly do you want to be satisfied? Jenny stared at the screen, her blood running cold. Someone was watching her. Someone knew about her investigation. Someone was warning her off, or challenging her to dig deeper. She looked at Copper, who was watching her with concerned brown eyes. "What do you think, boy? Do we keep digging, or do we walk away?" Copper's tail thumped once against the kitchen floor. Jenny opened her laptop and began typing her response. "I am a scientist. Satisfaction is my job." She hit send and closed the laptop. Tomorrow, she would expand her sampling grid as Mike had suggested, but not for the reasons he thought. Tomorrow, she would begin documenting the scope of Meridian's cover-up, even if it killed her career, even if it was dangerous. Because 40,000 people downstream deserved clean drinking water more than she deserved job security. The buried truth was about to surface.